All right, so today we're going to be factoring some more, more types of factoring. We're going to call it Notes 2.2, Factoring Continued. The first thing I want you to do is simplify. This is just a quick review. All right, so who can tell me what that meant? What did you do to simplify this thing? Our favorite four-letter F word. Our favorite four-letter math F word.
Dots. Or foil.
F word, yeah, foil. Foil. So we're going to foil. That just means multiply, double distribute. So first outer, inner last. All right, it's just a double distribute. Trying to be funny this morning. Y'all are like, ooh, okay. All right, what do you get when you foil this thing out? Keith, I saw yours on your paper. Do you mind sharing?
Distribute.
Yep. What'd you get?
X to the third
Very good.
plus 2x to the squared
Excellent.
plus 5x
Uh-huh.
plus 10.
Awesome. And what did you notice? Were you able to add anything together? No, you were not. Okay? So our answer actually still has all four terms in it, but it did come from a product of two other polynomials. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're actually going to start, at least the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start with polynomials that have four terms, and we're going to turn them back into, we're going to factor, and turn them back into a product of two other polynomials. Okay? All right. So, officially, we can call this part one of our notes, because that was the review. And you're going to factor each quadrinomial. Let me spell that right. Quadrinomial. Quad meaning four. Okay, quadrinomial by grouping. So I'm going to talk to you about grouping. Okay, how to factor by grouping. All right, so there are steps involved. So we're going to write down the steps and then we're going to apply them. Okay? So, my steps. Step one. Okay? You're going to group the first two terms together. And the last two terms together. All right? And what we're actually going to do when we do the problem is we're really just going to kind of break it in half. We're just going to split it down the middle, and that's our way of grouping. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. All right, once you have split the problem in half, you have grouped the first two and the last two separately. Okay, you are going to factor out the GCF from both halves. You're going to factor out, well, let me say that better, from each half. Let's say it like that, because it's not the GCF between the two halves. So let's just say from each half. Okay, factor out the GCF from each half. All right, step three. You're going to notice that what's left, all right, in each set of parentheses should match. If it doesn't, you've done something wrong. All right, or it doesn't actually factor by grouping. All right, so what's left in each set of parentheses should match, and that is one of your factors. And again, hopefully this will make more sense when you actually see me work a problem. All right, and then the last step, okay, all right, you have to look at what you took out of each half. All right, goes together to make the other factor. All right, I'll give you a second to finish copying that. All right, I'm just going to slide it up so we can have room for one problem. Hopefully you've gotten at least the first two. Okay, now remember when you factor, you can always FOIL things back together, right, to check your work. All right, so let's just do some examples. All right, so let's start with x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 6. Okay? So let's get this copied down. And then we will go through the 4 steps. All right, so step 1 says group the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together. Well, the easiest way to do that is to just take your pencil and cut it in half. Okay? Just make sure when you cut it in half, you do it before the plus or minus sign. So right after that 3x squared. Okay? So we're chopping it in half, and that's the easiest way to group. I've literally split this problem in half. Okay? All right, step 2, factor out the GCF from each half. Okay, so what is the GCF between x cubed and negative 3x squared? X squared. And then tell me what's left over. Just in those 2 terms. X minus 3. Okay? Then I'm going to move over to the other half and take out the GCF from those 2. What's the GCF from a positive 2x and a negative 6? All right, positive 2. So I'm actually going to write plus 2, not just 2. All right, and that's going to be for a reason in a minute. And then you have to tell me what's left over. X minus 3. Okay, so step 3 says what's left in each set of parentheses should match. If it doesn't, that's kind of an indicator that you either didn't take out everything you needed to take out, or it may not even factor, but it should. All right, so because it matches, that is one of my factors. Okay, so I am now ready to write my answer as 2 factors. And the one that matches in parentheses is one of them. Okay? Then step 4 says what you took out of each half. The GCFs you pulled out of each half, they go together to make the other factor. So what's my other factor? I literally just squeezed them together. Somebody said it.
Plus 2.
X squared plus 2. And that's why I put the plus with the 2. So I didn't forget that that's part of the factor. Okay? Do you guys remember doing this before? Especially if you took data? Did you take data? No. Okay. So yeah, you probably didn't do this in Algebra 1. That's why I wanted to go over it as if, it's new to everybody. questions. But that's the process every single time. Cut it in half. Look for the GCF in each half. The parentheses should match. That's one of your factors. The other stuff squeezes together to make the second factor. Okay? Let's try another one. All right, 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 6x minus 15. All right, so go through the steps. Step 1 is what? Anybody? Step 1, cut it in half. Split it right down the middle. All right? Just make sure that where you split it down the middle, any signs go after that, okay? And then we look for the GCF in each half. Kevin, what's the GCF in the first half, please? All right, how many? Just x? X what? If one of them has 3 and the other one has 2, x squared. Good. Okay? So you do have to make sure you take out the most that you possibly can take out. All right? And then, let's see, that's going to leave us with a 2x plus 5. All right, now I'm doing this example for a reason. On the other side of my half, not only do I need to take out a number, but somehow I need to make what's left over positive, right? Because I already know that the parentheses should match. So I have to figure out what can I take out of these two things to be left with a positive 2x and a positive 5. A negative 3. Right? So that's, again, that's why it's important to write that sign now. You have to take out a negative 3 to make them match. And when I divide by negative 3, I'm going to check my work. I do, in fact, get positive 2x plus 5. If I didn't take out the negative 3, then my stuff wouldn't match. Okay? So, one of my factors is 2x plus 5. What is my other one? X squared minus 3. Now, I will caution you, sometimes you have to, you should always check for dots at the end. Because if I have squares in any of my factors, I might have dots. Okay? Questions? You ready to try one on your own? All right, number 3. X cubed minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. Okay, so let's run through this one. Just like before, we're going to cut it in half. Okay. Chase, what was the GCF on the first half, please? What did you take out?
X to the second.
Very good. And what was left over?
X minus 2.
Very good. All right. So then I have to figure out what can I take out of the other two to make sure I have a positive x and a negative 2 left over. Negative 9. Very good. And so that does, in fact, give me a positive x minus 2. All right. So one of my factors, Grady, is what? One of them has to be the x minus 2. And the other one? Excellent. But x squared minus 9 is dots. Gavin. Thank you. So I have to go one more step. I bring down the x minus 2, but then I have to unfoil the dots. So what's going to go on the front of each? I'm like, why won't it write? Okay. And then what are my signs? 1 plus and 1 minus, doesn't matter which one I put first, and then the 9 turns into, what's the square root of 9? Or what times itself makes 9? Chase, help him out. 3. Thank you. All right, so you're not done until you unfoil that dots. Make sure you go all the way to the end. All right, now I'm going to bump it up a notch. I always try to do that. All right, so right now, I didn't ask you to look for a GCF first before you split it in half. But you should always do that. All right, because that's always the first step when factoring. So, let's see how it works if there's a GCF in the very beginning, before we split it in half. Before we split it in half. Take out that GCF. Take out that GCF. What GCF am I talking about? 2. Okay? So we're going to take out a 2 in the very beginning, before we ever split it in half. And you can use parentheses if you want. I'm just going to use brackets so that I don't forget that 2, right, is something I took out at the very beginning. That's going to be part of my final answer. But I still have to go through the other 4 steps with the rest of it. Okay? So see if you can work through the other 4 steps, and then we'll come back together in a minute. All right, let's finish this one up. So that 2, you can just keep carrying it down until the very end, or you can hold it up and wait till the end. But don't forget, that is part of the final answer. Okay? That is not part of the factor by grouping stuff. All right? So I do need to factor by grouping with what's left. All right, so I'm just going to slide it down a little bit. All right, so we're going to start by splitting that stuff in half. So remember, this is going to come down later to our final answer. Okay? Don't let it bother you now. All right, what is the GCF in the first half of the 4 terms?
X squared.
Very good. What's left over?
X plus 5.
Awesome. All right, here's a tricky one. What do I have to take out of the other 2 so that everything turns positive? A negative, and the only number they have in common is 1. All right, what if it was already what I wanted? All right, what if it was already pluses? Then I would take out a plus 1. You have to take out something, okay? So if they don't have anything in common and I don't need to change the signs, make sure you just take out a plus 1, okay? All right, so that does change the signs. So one of my factors, now I'm ready to put it all together. One of my factors is x plus 5, and the other one is x squared minus 1. But that's a dots. So we're going to go one more step, and we're going to break up our dots. Just keep bringing that 2 down at this point, okay? And that dots breaks into, and very good. Okay? Question.